All right, so let's just take a minute and think about our day, right?
Mm.
Like how much of our day actually involves the internet in some way?
Yeah,
It's kind of crazy when you stop and consider it.
it really is.
Whether we're, checking our bank accounts or buying things online, sending emails for work, or just, texting with family and friends.
It's become essential.
Totally. It's like completely ingrained into everything we do these days. Which, on one hand, it's pretty amazing how much it's simplified our lives.
Oh, absolutely. The convenience is undeniable.
But there's that other side of the coin, right?
There's always a trade-off.
Because all that connectivity comes with, well, risks.
Definitely.
We hear about cyber threats all the time.
Yeah.
And it can feel like our personal information, our financial details, our privacy, it's all just constantly under attack.
And that feeling is not unfounded. As we get more and more connected, the opportunities for those with bad intentions, those who want to exploit that connectivity, they increase too.
Yeah, and it's not just big companies getting hacked anymore, right?
Right. It's a common misconception. Individuals are actually prime targets for cybercriminals.
Which brings us to the heart of what we're diving into today.
Exactly.
We want to give you, our listeners, the rundown on cybersecurity, what it actually means for you in your everyday life, why it's so important, and most importantly, the concrete steps you can take to actually protect yourself online.
Because it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's about understanding the core concepts and the simple actions you can take to stay safe.
Right. Our goal here is to cut through all the complexity and jargon and give you the knowledge you need without making you feel like you need a computer science degree to understand it.
Exactly. Consider this your crash course in practical cybersecurity.
So let's start with the basics. When we say cybersecurity, what exactly are we talking about? I mean, it's a term that gets thrown around a lot.
It does. In the simplest terms, cybersecurity is all about protecting our digital lives, our devices, the networks they connect to, from those who wish to do us harm. So that's everything from preventing viruses from messing up our computers and phones, stopping hackers from stealing our personal information in those big data breaches we hear about, and making sure that nobody can sneak into our online accounts without our permission.
So it's about protecting all that stuff we do online and all the information we store digitally.
Precisely.
It's kind of like how we think about security in the physical world, right?
That's a really good analogy.
Like you lock your front door. Even if you don't see someone trying to break in every day, it's a basic precaution.
Exactly. You do it because the risk is always there, right?
Got it.
And it's the same in the digital world. These burglars, so to speak, the hackers and cybercriminals, they are constantly scanning for vulnerabilities in our online habits, the systems we use, the software on our devices.
So the threat is always there, even if we don't see it.
Okay, so why should you, the person listening to this right now, actually care about all of this? It's easy to think, oh, that'll never happen to me. That's something businesses need to worry about, not me. That's a very common thought and a dangerous one. Cybercriminals often target individuals, you, me, precisely because we are so many, and sometimes our security practices as individuals might not be as strong as a large organizations.
Right.
It's about casting a wider net, so to speak. Plus, the kind of information they can get from individuals, your passwords, your bank details, your identity, that's incredibly valuable on the dark web.
Okay, so it's not just some vague threat out there.
Not at all.
It can have a real impact on our lives, our finances, our well-being.
Absolutely.
So let's talk specifics. What are some of the common ways these cybercriminals try to actually get to our information? What should we be watching out for as we go about our online lives?
One of the most common tactics, and one you've probably come across yourself, is phishing. Have you ever received an email that looks like it's from your bank, for example, maybe saying there's been some suspicious activity on your account and you need to log in to verify it? Or maybe a text message that appears to be from a delivery company saying there's a problem with your package and you need to click a link to resolve it.
Oh yeah, those emails that look super official.
Right.
With all the right logos, very similar wording to the real thing. Those can definitely make you do a double take.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
a whole point. The whole deception behind phishing attacks is that they are designed to look legitimate, to trick you into revealing personal information. So things like your passwords, your credit card numbers, maybe even your social security number.
Great.
This might involve a fake website that's a mirror image of your actual bank's login page, for example, or maybe a bogus job offer that asks for very sensitive data up front.
Wow.
The whole point is to create a sense of urgency or authority to get you to act without thinking too critically.
So basically they're playing on our emotions and our trust.
Exactly.
Okay, that's pretty scary. What other kinds of threats are out there that we should be aware of?
Another very serious one is ransomware. Imagine turning on your computer one morning and, instead of your usual desktop, you see a message telling you that all your files, your photos, your documents, everything has been encrypted, meaning they've been scrambled and you can't access them.
Oh, no.
And then there's a demand for a ransom, usually in cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, in exchange for the key to unlock your data.
That is terrifying.
It is. And for individuals, especially if they don't have regular backups of their data, this can be devastating.
Yeah, I mean, that's not just an inconvenience. That's like potentially losing a huge part of your digital life.
Exactly.
And I guess it's not just about losing access to your own data, right?
Yeah.
What about when criminals actually steal your personal information and use it to, like, impersonate you?
That's right. Identity theft is a huge problem, and it's one of the biggest risks associated with data breaches and cyber attacks.
Right.
So cyber criminals, they can steal your personal details, your name, your birth date, your social security number, and then use that information to, for example, open new credit card accounts in your name, make fraudulent purchases, even apply for loans.
It's like they're stealing your entire identity.
In a way, yes. And recovering from identity theft can be incredibly difficult, time-consuming, and it can have long-lasting consequences for your credit score and just your overall peace of mind.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the scariest stuff out there, but that brings us to the most important part. What can we actually do to protect ourselves? It can feel a bit overwhelming knowing all these threats exist. So let's start with something we all use every single day. Passwords.
Passwords, the first line of defense.
We're always told to have strong passwords, but what does that really mean in practice?
It's more than just a random string of characters. Think of your password as a lock on all your digital doors. A strong password, it's like having a really complex, really difficult to pick lock. And the first rule is to avoid anything that's easily guessable. Your pet's name, your birthday, common words, or those weak passwords we still see way too often, like password 123 or QWERTY.
It's like leaving your front door wide open.
Exactly. So what makes a strong password? Well, it should be a mix of different character types. Uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters, those punctuation marks and symbols on your keyboard.
So the more random and complex, the better.
The more random and the longer, the better. The harder it becomes for hackers to crack. And this is absolutely crucial. Do not use the same password for multiple online accounts.
Right, don't use the same key for every single door.
Exactly. If one website you use suffers a data breach and your password gets exposed, well, if you've used that same password elsewhere, all those other accounts are suddenly vulnerable as well.
That makes perfect sense, but realistically, remembering a dozen or more completely different, long, super complicated passwords, I mean, it feels impossible.
It does, and that's where password managers come in. These are tools that can be real lifesavers.
Oh, tell me more.
Think of a password manager like a super secure digital vault for all your login credentials.
Okay.
You only have to remember one strong master password to unlock the password manager itself, and then it can securely store and even automatically generate complex and unique passwords for every other online account and service you use.
Okay.
And many of them can even automatically fill in your login details when you go to a website, so it actually makes things more convenient, not less.
That's amazing. I have to look into those. So once we've got our super secure digital fortress of passwords, what's the next layer of defense we should think about?
Two-factor authentication, often shortened to 2FA.
Okay, I've heard of that.
You want to enable this on as many of your important online accounts as possible. It's like adding a second independent lock to that digital front door.
Double the security.
Exactly. So even if someone manages to guess or steal your password somehow, they'll still need another piece of information to actually get into your account.
And how does that usually work?
The most common methods involve something you know, your password, and something you have, which is typically your smartphone. So when you try to log into an account with 2FA enabled, after you put in your password, the service sends a unique, time-sensitive code to either an authenticator app on your phone or via text message. And you have to enter that second code to prove it's really you.
Makes sense. That extra step can make a huge difference.
Hmm.
What about the devices themselves, our phones, laptops, tablets? I'm always getting those notifications to install software updates. Are those really as important as they seem?
They're absolutely crucial. Software developers are constantly finding and fixing security holes in their programs. And at the same time, hackers are actively looking for those same holes to exploit.
Right.
When you install a software update, it's essentially like patching those holes, making your devices and the software on them less vulnerable to attack.
So it's like our digital maintenance crew.
Exactly. So please don't ignore those notifications. They often contain essential security fixes.
Got it. Updates are our friends. What about when we're out and about using public Wi-Fi at a coffee shop or an airport? Is that something we need to be extra cautious about?
Yes, public Wi-Fi networks, as convenient as they can be less secure than your private home network.
Okay.
Sometimes the data transmitted over these public networks isn't encrypted, which means it could potentially be intercepted and viewed by someone else who's on the same network. Imagine having a conversation in a crowded room where anyone could be eavesdropping.
That doesn't sound good at all.
Hmm.
Should we just avoid public Wi-Fi entirely?
Not necessarily. It's not always practical to avoid public Wi-Fi entirely,
Right.
but definitely exercise caution when you are using it. Avoid doing anything sensitive, like online banking or online shopping or logging into important accounts while on public Wi-Fi. And get into the habit of using a VPN, a virtual private network. VPNs encrypt your internet connection, making it much harder for anyone to snoop on your online activity, even on a public network. It's like having a private, secure conversation even in that crowded room.
Okay, so VPNs are like our privacy shield when we're out in public.
Exactly.
So, strong passwords, enabling 2FA, keeping our software updated, and being careful on public Wi-Fi, especially with a VPN. It's a lot of great advice. Is there anything else we should keep in mind as we navigate the digital world?
The most important thing is to stay informed. Because the tactics cybercriminals use, they're always changing. New scams emerge, new threats appear, and the landscape shifts constantly. So by making an effort to stay updated on the latest cybersecurity news, you can learn to recognize these threats and adapt your defenses.
So we have to be proactive, not reactive. So I think what's become really clear today is that this isn't just some abstract tech problem that only affects big companies, right? This is something that impacts all of us, anyone who uses the internet, which is, well, pretty much everyone. But the good news is, by taking these steps, these relatively simple steps, you can drastically reduce your risk of becoming a victim.
I completely agree. Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility in the digital age, and by taking these precautions, we can all contribute to making the online world a safer place for everyone.
So true. The internet is an amazing tool, but like any powerful tool, it needs to be used responsibly and with an awareness of the risks.
And for those who'd like to delve even deeper into cybersecurity or other tech-related topics, the source material for today's episode mentioned that you can subscribe to the show and share it with anyone who might find it helpful. Also, feel free to reach out to us through social media or email with any questions you might have or suggestions for future deep dives.
Absolutely. We love hearing from our listeners, and your feedback helps us create even more insightful episodes. So with that, we'll wrap up our deep dive into cybersecurity for today. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as always, stay tech savvy.